At this point, you have some experience and knowledge of information technology. And now you are wondering if you can learn automation, particularly Ansible automation. But you might be a little scared of programming or coding and not sure if you could do it, right? Perhaps you have taken a few courses online but really didn't get the skills that you are looking for. Ansible is one of the most famous automation tools in IT industry, and you should have some experience or exposure to it, especially if you want to level up your career. That is why I bring you this course, which will provide you not only the conceptual understanding of Ansible, but also we will have extensive technical hands-on experience by setting up the lab, and we will automate many everyday tedious tasks. Hi, my name is Imran Afzal, and I've been in IT for over 20 years now. I have been teaching many IT related courses for many years. I have my bachelor's degree from Baruch College and my MBA from New York Institute of Technology. If you are ready to take your automation skills to the next level, then come join me in this course on Ansible automation, where you will learn everything you need to know about Ansible.
Hey folks, let's just spend few minutes to go over our course and then you decide if this is the right course for you. I have broken down this entire course in 10 different sections. Section 1 includes introduction about Ansible, the history, benefits, why do you have to take this course? What benefit serves you? What are the terminologies? How Ansible works? Other Ansible tools or automation tools that are out there. Then we'll talk about the free source Ansible and Red Hat Ansible. I know a lot of confusion around this topic. We'll cover that. And then every section has handouts and quizzes for you to go through. Then in section 2, we will go over the lab design and how are we going to set up and do the install. So we have an installation of the virtualization software. We'll create a virtual machine and install Linux. We'll install Linux for our main server where we are installing Ansible, and then we will also have an Ansible client as our remote client, which will be used to execute our tasks for automation. Then we'll install Ansible on our main Linux machine. Then we'll do the handouts and quiz again. Comes to section 3, Ansible automation with simple playbooks. We'll start with simple baby steps. So very first thing is we'll go through the YAML file syntax, the example, creating our first playbook. Then the second playbook is about outputting on the screen or printing it, then combining multiple tasks into the playbook, and then playbook for installing and starting a service. Then coming down to section 4, we have Ansible automation for remote clients. Now this is one of the longest section of this course and the most important section of this course, in which we will create playbooks and execute it against our remote clients. So we'll set up the host file, we'll go over the file syntax, we'll establish connection to our remote clients, and we'll do the playbooks. And the list of playbooks are like check remote clients connectivity, copy files, change file permissions, set up Apache or any package, open firewall port, run shell script on the remote, schedule a job like a cron job on the remote client, user account management, update user password, download package from URL, killing a process, and much, much more. All right, then we will also go over pick and choose the steps that are listed within your playbook. All right, of course, handout and quiz coming down to section 5. Ansible automation with ad hoc task, meaning that you do not have to write playbooks, you could just run tasks on the fly. And I have broken this section into 3 different videos because it's a long video, so I have taken each and every command and shown you every single thing or every single automation that you could use with ad hoc. So we have 3 followed by handouts and quiz. Then section 6, advanced Ansible automation features. That includes roles, roles by application, roles on Ansible Galaxy. Then we'll talk about tags, variables, variables in inventory files, so much more coming down to section 7. Additional features in Ansible. Wow, it doesn't stop here. The handlers we're going to learn, conditions, loops, Then section 8 is about securing Ansible. We will go over the Ansible vault, encrypt strings within a playbook. So this is an important topic. Definitely don't miss that. In section 9, we'll cover Ansible management tools, the tools that you need to manage your Ansible environment if you are in a larger corporation. And that includes Ansible AWX and Ansible Tower. In the last section, we will go over Ansible resources, and the very first video will be about Ansible additional commands. Now, 95% of the time, you will be dealing with the first three commands. And then we have additional commands that are available with Ansible software, and we will spend some time to go over each one of them. Then we will go through the Ansible documentation. There are a ton of online resources that you could find on Ansible. Then the last video will be about community help. If you are using a free open source software of Ansible and you get stuck, how can you get help? There is a community for Ansible where you could go and open up a ticket or request for help. I will show you that in this video. So this is all about my course overview. Now you decide if this is the right course for you. And I tell you, once you complete this course, you will be a perfect candidate for any DevOps job. So let's go ahead and enroll. In this video, we will have a quick introduction of Ansible. We'll find out what Ansible is. Ansible is an open source software provisioning, configuration, management, and application deployment tool enabling infrastructure as code. It runs on many Unix-like systems and can configure both Unix-like systems as well as Microsoft Windows. And that's the exact definition that we have from Wikipedia. So, to put it in a simple words, or I would say my definition, Ansible is basically a free automation tool that can automate IT tasks on local machine where Ansible is running and on remote machine. So anything that you wanted to automate, like a regular daily tasks for your IT needs, you could use Ansible to automate that. All right, so let's visualize it and understand exactly the purpose or how Ansible works. So let's say if you have a Linux machine or a Windows machine and you wanted to configure Apache in it or NTP server or anything that you want to configure. So what do? You log into that machine, SSH into it, and configure it. Beautiful. What if you have two machines? Well, you could do the same thing, log in and configure it. And if you have three machines, again, you could log into the third machine, SSH into it, and configure it. All right, that works in a smaller environment. Now, what if you have three, six, nine, 12, thousands of machines, for example, in a larger environment? Are you going to log into every single machine if you have to change a configuration on or similar configuration on all of them? No, right? It would be very cumbersome and it will take you a lot of time to log into every single machine and make that change. That's where you create an Ansible server, or that's where the Ansible tool is born. So you set up an Ansible server, which is also known as a control node. You install the Ansible software onto that machine. Then you log into that machine using SSH, the same way you will log into any Linux machine. And then you make the change to a configuration file on that control node and then push that configuration to all the different nodes or make the change to all the configuration of all the machines. See how easy it becomes when you do that through one server? Please note, Ansible is written in Python language, but it does not mean you need Python knowledge to use Ansible because Ansible has provided a very easy language to use to automate your tasks, which we'll cover later on. All right, Ansible can be used to provision system, meaning you could actually build systems from scratch using Ansible. Ansible is also used to configure those systems. Now you have the operating system built, the system is ready. Now you have to configure the system, meaning services or which way or you want your system to work. Once that is done, then you could deploy applications as well. Let's say if you have to install Apache application or SAP application or database on your system, then you could deploy those applications using Ansible. Once those deployed, it doesn't end here. You could manage those systems and applications using Ansible. So if you have to upgrade your system, for example, 6 months from now or after the deployment, then you could use Ansible to do that. Now let's take a look at a few examples of the tasks that can be automated using Ansible. Provisioning, which we already have talked about. You could actually provision your bare metal server, virtualization systems, network devices, storage system, cloud platform. Also, you could do system configuration, as I mentioned. What are the examples of system configurations? Such as updates or upgrades, package installation, service configuration, stop, start, restart of any services that can be done using Ansible. Users and groups. You could create one user on one server, or you could create that same user to multiple servers at the same time. Assigning permissions to files and directories. Moving on, you could do application deployment, backups, weekly or monthly system reboots, orchestration. What is orchestration? Orchestration is a way of automating your system step by step in a specific order. So let's take an example of e-commerce. In e-commerce, you have to have application setup, database setup, and web services. So you could actually let the system know through orchestration, and that orchestration wraps around Ansible that it should reboot or restart application services, database services, and then it should start the web services. So everything happens in a certain order. That is an orchestration that you could actually have that within Ansible to handle it. So that's how Ansible works, or a quick overview of Ansible. In this video, we will cover a brief history of Ansible. The Ansible project was started in 2012 by Michael D. Hann. It is an open source and community driven, and I'm sure you know the open source and the community driven when people get together from different part of the world toward one goal to build a tool. And open source is you could build your own code and add that to that tool to enhance its features. Then Ansible Incorporation was purchased by Red Hat in 2015. When it's purchased, even today, it is still open source, but certain part or certain features, I would say, of Ansible can be purchased from Red Hat, such as Ansible Tower, or if you need a subscription for support or consulting, that you could buy from Red Hat. It is available for most of the Linux distributions, such as Red Hat, CentOS, Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, and SUSE. Now, Ansible can only be installed, the engine itself can only be installed on Linux systems. You cannot install on Windows servers. However, you could manage and automate Windows systems tasks using Ansible. All right, let's take a quick look at the need of Ansible. Once again, very fast infrastructure management, especially the virtualization. When we have thousands of virtual machines and we build virtual machines in a very fast way, you don't want to build them manually. It becomes cumbersome and tedious. That's when you use Ansible. Configuration management for system and application, multi-tier application automation like orchestration, single point of automation, meaning if you have a one server like Ansible, you could change everything on that server and then push it out to all the rest of the world, meaning the rest of the virtual machines. When you are learning certain tool, it is important that you should know why you are learning or what's the benefit of learning that tool. So I have compiled a list of all the benefits that Ansible has to offer. And the very first one is it is agentless. What it means that Ansible can be installed on one server, and let's say if you have to manage 100 other servers, you don't need to install the Ansible or its agent to those other 100 servers. All you need is an SSH access to that server, and then let Ansible do the rest. Then Ansible is open source. It has its features that can be changed or added as you move on, or you could also not only rely on the company to add its feature, you could request a feature and have them updated by the community. Then avoid human errors. If you have to make changes to one, two, or three servers, most likely you're not going to make a mistake. But if you're repeating the same procedure on 10 or 15 or 20 different servers, then most likely you will make a mistakes. And especially when we are talking about the larger environment where you have to manage or log into thousands of different servers and do the same configuration change, then I'm very sure that you will make a mistake because I know I have made a mistakes in the past. So when you are making a change on only on one place and on Ansible server and you're double checking it and you're pushing it out to other servers, beautiful. You don't have to make a mistake. There won't be a chance of human errors. So, of course, when you are automating tasks, what is it doing for you? It is saving you time. And once your time is saved, what happens? It increases your productivity. You could focus on other projects in your organization and let Ansible do these repetitive, boring, tedious tasks for you. Easy to use? Yes, it's a lot easier. When I learned Ansible, I had to learn from scratch, I tell you that. But it's so easy to learn, especially for those who know Linux. You don't have to be really good in Linux, but if you have a basic understanding of Linux, it's a lot easier to use. It's simple. Human readable text file. What it means is the playbooks that we're gonna write to automate tasks, those playbooks are so simple, human readable text file. You would know by looking at it. That's a lot easier. It's not really like a code or C++ code where you look at it and you're like, oops, what is that? No, it's very easy to read and understand. It's flexible. Moving on, it's secure. Yes, if it's agentless and you are doing everything over SSH, as you know, SSH stands for Secure Shell. So if you are connecting to all your remote hosts over SSH, it's automatically secure. All right, moving down the line or moving down the list, it provides pre-written modules. So you don't have to have your own or create your own module to do certain tasks. Let's say if you have to do a yum install, you have a module for it. Let's say if you wanted to start a service, you have a module for it. Most of the tasks that we do in a Linux environment or even Windows environment, we have a pre-written modules for them. It's very easy to learn, of course. Now, remember, as long as you have a good instructor, I will make sure that you learn everything about Ansible in this entire course. All right, great product for orchestration. Yes, if you have an environment where you have to schedule tasks or put them in order, it's a great product for that. Ansible can be used not only for systems but also for network storage and cloud. All those gears that you have that if you wanted to configure them, you could use Ansible for it. It provides approximately 1300 module out of the box and about 4000 module on Galaxy. As we're going to go through the modules, right now you probably don't know what module is, but module, just to give you a quick update, module is something that provides you to automate a certain task. We'll cover that later. Right out of the box, it had 13 of those. Sorry, 1300 of those. All right, huge online Ansible resources. That's for documentation, that's for module, that's for systems information. You could go to Ansible, docs.ansible, galaxy.ansible, GitHub, and many, many other online resources where you'll find great, great documentations and resources on Ansible. And the last but not the least, it's a big plus for job seekers who are looking for a job and for those who are already in IT and they want to level up their career. If you want to be in DevOps, which is the development operations, and if you want to enhance your skills, Ansible is the tool for you. If you know Linux, if you are in the system administration, Ansible is the answer for you because I know the system administrator does a lot of automations. You probably write shell scripts to automate your things, or you write PowerShells in Windows. With Ansible, you don't have to do that in every server. Here is the answer to your prayers where you do or manage or automate all your IT tasks. In this video, we will cover the terminologies used in Ansible. The very first one is the control node or Ansible server. The server which runs Ansible application. This is the main Linux server where Ansible engine or Ansible application or tool is installed, and that's where you could create or manage all your playbooks, and you could send or communicate from this server to all the remaining or remote clients. This server is called control node. Then modules. Module is a command meant to be executed on the client side. Most of the IT task modules are already created and can be found on Ansible website. There are almost 1,300 modules out of the box that are available and about 4,000 plus modules on Ansible Galaxy websites. You could go to docs.ansible.com and search for modules of your choice if you want to automate a certain task. You could also go to galaxy.ansible.com. Now let's look at the example of modules. Of course, we will cover modules in great detail later on. Install HTTP. For example, if that's something you want to do, when you want to install HTTP, what command you do? You use either yum or in newer versions of Linux, you could use DNF. So you do have a module for that. You don't have to actually use the yum command or DNF command itself. You rely on the module. Same way you enable the service, there's a service module for it. And you could start that service. There's a service module for that as well. These are pretty much two modules that you see. One is to install HTTP, and second module that is used is to enable and start the service. When we combine all of these three, they become a task. That task is within a YAML file. Now let's talk about a task. A task is a section that consists of single procedure to be completed. A task can have multiple modules. As we have seen in the above example, there are installing HTTP package. Once it's installed, we enable it so it could start at boot time. And then we wanted to start that service. All of that together is comprised of a task. Then you could have more or additional tasks doing different modules. All right, moving on. Then we have a playbook, automation file with step-by-step execution of multiple tasks. So when you combine all those tasks and each task would have multiple modules, that is written in a certain file. That certain file is called a playbook. YAML. YAML stands for a playbook written in YAML language, and YAML itself stands for yet another markup language. So the format that is written within playbook, that format is called YAML. And once that format has all the module and task, it is the final item or the final product is called playbook. Inventory. Now you have a node, a control node, or an Ansible server. You have to go and reach out to the remote servers, right? So those remote servers has to be listed somewhere. That is listed in a file called hosts, and that host file is our inventory file that has information about remote clients where tasks are executed. Moving on to tag, there is another term that used called tag, a reference or alias to a specific task. So this way, you don't have to repeat that module or that task again and again, you could reference it to a tag. Of course, we'll cover that later on. Variable. Variable are like containers that holds or defined value which can be used repetitively. Then a role. Splitting of playbooks into smaller groups. Roles let you automatically load related vars, files, task handlers, and other Ansible artifacts based on a known file structure. After you group your content in roles, you can easily reuse them and share them with other users. So if you have, for example, you wanted to install the Apache server, you wanted to start the service, you could put them into a smaller playbook and then you could put that playbook into a role. So the main playbook doesn't have to be so cluttered, I would say, with all those long list of modules. You could call upon those smaller playbooks, and that's what these roles are for. Anyway, that's the list of terminologies that I wanted to cover. There are a few that I probably not have covered, but anyway, these are the most important ones that you should know as you're gonna learn Ansible. In this video, we will learn how Ansible works. So we know until now that Ansible is used to automate our IT tasks. All right. So very first thing is each of those specific tasks in Ansible is written through module or a group of modules. Multiple modules are written in sequential order as how you want them to be executed. Then multiple modules for related tasks is called a play. If you have one, two, or three modules to perform certain tasks or they are related to each other, then together that's a task that become a play. Then all of those little plays together makes a playbook. Playbook is written as a file format called YAML. All right. So through these statements, if you still have a confusion or still don't understand how Ansible works, that's perfectly fine. Let's visualize it. You start writing your YAML file through Vim or VI, whichever your preferred editor is. And you want to execute tasks to all the remote servers. Those remote servers or your hosts are the web servers. All right. On those web servers, you have installed the operating system. Everything's done. It's time to install HTTPD. And if you need to install HTTP, you have to use a module to install a package. Then you have to enable HTTP. That enabling is the service of HTTP. And then you have to use a module. That module will be a service module. Same thing, then you have to start that HTTP service and you will use a service module. All right, that all three of them together makes a play because they are all related tasks. When I say related, it all has to do with HTTP, HTTP, HTTP. All right, next one is enable HTTP port on firewall. Now, that is another module. That module is to enable or go to firewall and enable port 80 for HTTP. That's a play itself because it's not part of the play right above where we are starting or and installing HTTP because in this one we are going to firewall. However, all of these together because all these tasks or all these modules are combined together makes a task because they are going to the web servers. All right, so now if you wanted to do certain task or run certain task on database servers, and you wanted to use the same YAML file, then you will most likely will log into database server, create a table, restart the database. All three of them would require a module to do that. And that three modules makes a play. And then, of course, that's another task because it's going to another set of servers. All right, all of these three plays together, if you are done with that file, makes the playbook. And that playbook is written in what language? It's written in YAML format. All right, moving on, commands example that are used to run Ansible. To run modules through a YAML file, you would have to run the command ansible-playbook. That's all one command, space, followed by the name of the YAML file. Then it will simply go through all the modules you have written inside of the YAML file and execute them sequentially. To run module independently, meaning if you wanted to run a specific module without running it through a YAML file as an ad hoc, you could do just Ansible. My servers, for example, my server are the list of your hosts. And let's say if you want to run the module ping to ping them, you could do that. For this, you don't need a YAML file. However, we will cover that later on, so not to worry about it right now. Ansible configuration files are etc ansible, ansible.cfg, etc ansible host. That's where all of your hosts or remote hosts where you want to execute your task on. All of them reside in this file. And then etc ansible roles. Roles is where if you want to separate each of the plays on a separate files, that becomes a lot easier so there your YAML file doesn't look cluttered. Anyway, once again, we'll cover roles later on. So that's how Ansible works. Maybe if you are still a little confused, trust me on this. Don't worry about it. I'll take it. I'll make it so easy for you that you will understand everything one by one in the later lectures. In this video, we will cover the other automation tools, and I'm sure you have heard of them. One is Puppet, and the other one is the Chef. Now, let's take a quick look and do a quick comparison from these tools to Ansible. These tools, Puppet and Chef, both uses Ruby language, which is more difficult to learn, and their support is diminishing or declining day by day. These tools require agents to be installed on your remote clients or your end clients where you want the IT automation to be executed. The installation process for these tools is very complex. And the lack of documentation is another factor where Ansible has a more advantage over these tools. All right, coming in and looking at Ansible, it uses very simple YAML format or YAML coding, whatever that you want to call it. It's very easy to understand. Once you're going to look at it, you will know for sure that it's very easy to write. You don't really need to know or you don't have to have a coding background to use or write a YAML file. It is agentless, which is awesome because you don't have to go to your thousands of servers and install agents and require root access to do that. It only requires an SSH access, meaning you generate the keys on your Ansible and then send over to all the other remote clients. By the way, we'll cover that later on. Then easy installation. A lot easier. It's just a simple configuration installation as you would do with any other package on Linux system. And the last one, again, it's well documented product. As I mentioned earlier, you could find a lot of documentation or a lot of websites where you could get and download its document. Plus, there are man pages on the Linux system which you could run to find the options. Or if you want to learn more about the options of each module, you can get that from either on any of those websites or through the man pages. Up until this point, we have a lot of good information about Ansible. There is one confusion that always around, and I know a lot of system administrators have this confusion is open source Ansible versus Red Hat Ansible. Is Red Hat Ansible different from the open source Ansible? No. So let's take a look. Ansible itself is a free open source software. It was purchased by Red Hat, yes, in 2015. Ansible software itself, the tool, the package itself is free, even though it is owned by Red Hat. So clarifying it once again, Ansible is the same software across all platforms. The only difference is Red Hat provides additional product, which is Ansible Tower, and consulting or technical support for Ansible, which you don't get if you just wanted to run um, Ansible and you don't need any support, or you don't need any Ansible Tower. You could get support from the community, but it's not guaranteed that you're going to get the response back in a timely fashion, or if you have an SLA that you need to fulfill, then it's better that you go with the consulting or technical support. All right, if you want to learn more about it, I would highly recommend you to go to www.redhat.com. Let's take a quick look on Red Hat Ansible Tower. Red Hat provides Ansible Tower, which is GUI-based, graphical user interface-based tool to manage Ansible automation. Ansible Tower is a paid product by Red Hat, and it manages multiple Ansible servers for a large enterprise environment. So if you have production, non-prod, DR, QA, all those different environment, and you probably have your control node or Ansible server on all these different environment, then it's best that you use Ansible Tower. So Ansible Tower can manage all your nodes under one single pane of glass. There is another tool which provides somewhat similar functionality as Ansible Tower, and that is Ansible AWX. This tool is open source and it's, of course, a free software. Now, when you use Ansible AWX, you're not going to get the support from Red Hat. So if you are in a larger, huge, big environment, in corporate environment, my recommendation is always go with Ansible Tower so you could get all the support that you need from Red Hat. But if you're still confident that you are able to manage your own environment without any support, then be my guest and go with Ansible AWX. In this video, we are going to talk about how we are going to design and set up our lab. So let's talk about designing our lab first. So if you are in corporate world, you're working for any company, for example, ABC or XYZ company, and you wanted to go through the automation through Ansible, then most likely you do have access to a server or a computer, and it has Linux operating system running on it. All you have to do is install Ansible, and then you also have other Linux servers or Windows server for that matter that you want to control and automate tasks onto those servers. So you basically send the commands, the automation commands from Ansible to those clients, and that's how it will work in a corporate world. Now, what if you have a home environment? In home environment or in your lab environment, I would say you would have to find a computer. A computer could be either desktop or laptop. It has to have a Linux operating system running on it, and we will install Ansible on top of the Linux operating system. By the way, if you do not have a Linux operating system directly running on that computer, it's fine. I will show you in the next slide how we're going to go about installing Linux. Then we have to make sure that computer or that Linux machine has a required package, which is Python 3. Again, we'll talk about that later. If that computer is running Windows, or the virtual machine that we will be setting up on top of this computer, if it has a Windows running, then please note that Ansible node or Ansible engine cannot be installed on Windows Server. All right, so once we have that Linux machine, then we install the Ansible, and then we could execute all the commands to our remote clients. Moving on to the detailed design of our lab. So we have two options here. Option number one, we have to find a computer, a desktop or a laptop. And let's say if your laptop is running Mac OS or if it's running Windows. That's perfectly fine. All you have to make sure that it has Intel VTX or AMD 64-bit CPU. The operating system which is running on your computer has to be a 64-bit operating system. The computer has to have a 8 gig, minimum 8 gig of RAM, which is the memory. It has to have 40 to 60 gig free disk space. All right, so once you have that, that's the minimum requirement. Then what we will do, we will install an virtualization software on top of that, on that operating system. That virtualization software could either be Oracle VirtualBox or it could be VMware Workstation Player. Then we will create a virtual machine, a very first virtual machine on that virtualization software, and then we will install Linux operating system. That Linux operating system could either be CentOS, or Red Hat, or Ubuntu. Ansible can be installed and can be run on any of these operating systems. We will install Ansible engine or Ansible software on these operating system, and that virtual machine or that virtual computer will become our control node. Any Ansible engine which controls the remote clients or other clients is known as control node. Then we will create another virtual machine that would have either Linux or Windows, whichever computer that you want to control. So in our lab design or in this course, we will create one extra virtual machine which we will control through a control node. If you have enough resources, then I would say, aside from client 1, we'll create another client, a VM3 running Linux as well, and we will call it client 2. Now, this is our option 1. What's the second option? The second option is if you do not have the required resources or a computer or a desktop in your home, then you could actually utilize one of those cloud services such as AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure. Create an account, and most of these cloud services gives you free account and free access to create virtual machines. In this example or in this option, you will create a VM1 and then you will install Linux operating system on it. Again, it could be either CentOS, Red Hat, or Ubuntu. Then we will install Ansible on it, and that becomes our control node. Then we'll create VM2 as our remote client, which we will be running our or executing our commands through control node. In that VM2, of course, we will install a Linux. Same thing, this is going to be client 1. Same thing with VM3, Linux, and that becomes client 2. So that's our option 2. But in this entire course, we will go through option 1. And by the way, the VM1, that's where we will install the Linux operating system. In this entire course, we will go through the CentOS or CentOS operating system installation, and we will set our control node on that operating system and install the Ansible on it. In this video, we are going through the installation of virtualization software. So the very first thing we have to do is to identify whether we are using a laptop or a desktop. That's going to be your home lab. It could either run a Mac operating system or Windows operating system. Then the next thing we'll have to do is install a virtualization software on it. The virtualization software for this course, we will be using Oracle VirtualBox. If you're using Apple Mac OS with M1 chip, then you would have to go with UTM virtualization software. All right, so first thing is, what is a virtualization software? Virtualization software is a software that runs on top of your existing operating system, and it allows you to create virtual machines on top of your existing operating system, so you do not have to remove the existing operating system. What is Oracle VirtualBox? So Oracle VirtualBox is a free software. It's a virtualization software by Oracle that we will be using in this course. You could go with a VMware Workstation Player as well if that is something that you are familiar with and that's something you prefer. Then we will go ahead and download the Oracle VirtualBox. And then once it's downloaded, we'll go ahead and install Oracle VirtualBox on our computer. My computer is using a Windows 64-bit operating system. If you are using Windows computer, then you could go to your search menu and type my computer or this PC, right click and go to properties. Here you will find out the processor information, the memory that you have installed, the type of computer. As I said previously, it has to be a 64-bit operating system. All right, once you have confirmed, now it's time to go ahead and download the Oracle VirtualBox. By the way, if you already are familiar with Oracle VirtualBox or you already have a virtual machine running Linux operating system to install Ansible, then you could simply skip this entire video. All right, if you're doing this for the first time, then let's go ahead and start up your browser. Any browser of your choice, I'll go ahead with Firefox. And here I'll type it in download Oracle VirtualBox. Go to the one that says virtualbox.org, click on it, and pick your operating system. Since our operating system is Windows, so we'll pick Windows host. Now, please note, if you see a higher version of Oracle VirtualBox, then go with the most recent version download. Once it's downloaded, perfect, go ahead and click Open File. Now this is the time to do the installation. All right, you might get a message say, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? Click yes. All right, welcome to Oracle VM VirtualBox. The version setup wizard, just simply follow the wizard. Leave everything default, click next. Choose from the following options: create a start menu, create a shortcut on desktop, create a shortcut quick launch bar. I'll leave that out. And register file association, leave everything as default, click next. Proceed with installation. Warning, network interface. Installing Oracle VM VirtualBox networking feature will reset your network connection and temporarily disconnect you from the network. So if you are running any other important or production critical application on your machine, this machine where we're installing, then I would say stop them first, because the network adapter will reset and it will give you a brief interruption on the network. So if not, if it's just a lab or home computer, then simply click yes and install. All right, Oracle VM VirtualBox version installation is complete. Click Finish button to exit the setup, and also a check mark is already there by default if you wanted to start it when you click Finish. All right, so as soon as the application or the software starts up, this is the window box that you will see. Let me minimize the Firefox in the background. And right here you will see this is the Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager. This is where you will go in and create virtual machines. And once we create the virtual machine, we'll install the Linux operating system, install Ansible, and we'll go it from there. Previously, we have downloaded and installed Oracle VirtualBox. Now it's time to go in and create a virtual machine and install Linux operating system. So step by step, the very first thing we did, we identified our computer where we will be installing the virtualization layer. So second thing we did, downloaded and installed the virtualization, which we picked the Oracle VirtualBox. Now the third thing is we'll go and open up our VirtualBox and create a virtual machine. Then the last step is to install Linux operating system. Now, in this course, I'm going to install Linux CentOS version 8 operating system. Of course, you could go with any version of your choice. You could either go with Red Hat 6, 7, 8, or you could go with CentOS, you could go with Ubuntu. All the instructions have been provided. But for this course, we will go with CentOS version 8. All right, so first thing is to create a virtual machine. All right, so you could start your Oracle VirtualBox by typing right here, or simply double click the icon on your desktop. Let's start it from the desktop. Click New to create a new virtual machine. Let's pick the name Ansible Control Node. This is the name of the virtual machine. not the name of your operating system. All right, so pick the type Linux and the version, let's pick Linux 2.6, 64-bit, and click next. This is the size of your memory, which is 1 gig by default. Let's change it to 2 gig, 2048. Next. This is going to ask you about your disk. Create a virtual disk now. The file type, leave it default, and change the disk size to 20 gig. If you are planning on adding a lot of scripts or a lot of huge files onto your Ansible control node, then change the size according to your requirement. Click Create. Now your virtual machine has been created. I want you to go to Setting, and you will see in general it has the name and the type of operating system that will be hosting on this computer. Go to System. If you want to change the memory, you could change it now. If you want to change the processor, which is given as one CPU by default, if you want to change it now. Go to Storage and click on Ansible Control Node.vdi, and you will see this is the 20 gig that we have picked for our disk space. I want you to go to Network and change the attach to from NAT to bridge adapter. This will allow you to connect to the internet once you have the operating system installed. That's perfect. Click OK. Now, before you power it on, it is going to ask you where the operating system ISO image. So we have to download the CentOS ISO image. For that, we'll go to our Firefox. That's a browser that I'm using. Go to Google and type it in download CentOS. Go to the CentOS.org. Click on CentOS Stream because CentOS Linux will give you 7. If you wanted to go with 7, that's still fine. Click on this one on 7 and pick the first one, the first mirror that will allow you to download the ISO image. Now we are going with 8, so CentOS Stream version 8 and x86 underscore 64-bit. Click on it and pick the first one, and then pick the one that says x86-64, the version dvd1.iso, and you will notice it has the high size. Pick this one and it will start downloading. I have already downloaded this ISO image to save some time, so I'm going to cancel it. If you have not downloaded, so please wait until the download completes. All right, so download is completed. I have it downloaded on my desktop. Right here is the downloaded of ISO image. Now go ahead and click on Start. We'll start the virtual machine. Once it starts, it's going to ask you where is the ISO image of the operating system that you want to install. So we'll pick this folder, add, where is our ISO image? It is on our desktop, and right here is the ISO image. Click Open and click Choose, and then Start. This page is by default selected Test this media and install CentOS Stream. Move your arrow on the keyboard and select the first one, which is install CentOS Stream 8, and hit Enter. All right, you're gonna get the welcome to CentOS installation. Pick your language, the region. For me, it's United States, and then click Continue. All right, please complete items marked with this icon before continuing to the next step. Keyboard English, leave at default. Installation source local media, which we have picked from our desktop. Installation destination. So this is the 20 gig. It's already checked. Click Done. It's checking storage, automatic partitions. We are now going to do the custom partition. We're just picking the automatic partition. Language support, leave it default. Software selection. Server with GUI. You can leave that default unless you want to add more packages. Simply click Done. KDump is enabled by default. Leave as is. Time and date. For me, it's America's New York. You could change it according to your time and region. network and host name. Right here, our network is turned on. We'll move this here and change the host name to Ansible control node. Or we could make it shorter by just saying control node. This is going to be the host name of this operating system. Once you click on apply, it will say current host name is control node. The network is connected on already. Beautiful. Click done. Now that one is done. Security policy, you don't have to make any changes. Root password, pick a password. Okay, it's saying the password fails the dictionary check. It is based on a dictionary word which you will have to press done twice to confirm. So if you're picking a weak password, that is fine, but you have to press done twice. But of course, I would recommend that you pick a stronger password. All right, since this is again, it's lab, that is fine. The next one right here says user creation. If you want to create a user, you can. I'm going to create a user for myself. Requires a password. Pick a password for that user. Again, it's a weak password. That is fine. So I'm going to click done twice. All right, all the information that is needed has been provided. Perfect. Now click on begin installation. Now this is going to take anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 or 25 minutes, depending on the speed of your computer where you are running this virtual software. All right, I'm going to fast forward from this point. All right, so installation has been completed. Go ahead and click on reboot system. License information, click I accept the license agreement. Done. Finish configuration. All right, so now you got the login screen. Go ahead and click on your name, or you could click on not listed and type it in root if you wanted to log in as root. Hit enter. Okay, so now we have a desktop. Click on activities and click on the terminal. This is the terminal that we will be using to execute Ansible scripts or Ansible commands. But for that, first we have to install Ansible. So anyway, for this video, we have created a virtual machine and installed a Linux operating system on our virtual machine. And of course, the next step would be to install Ansible software. I'll see you in the next lecture. Hey folks, so this is the last step of our lab setup. We have downloaded and installed Oracle VirtualBox, then we have downloaded and installed Linux operating system. Now it's time to install Ansible software or Ansible engine on our Linux operating system. All right, so one important thing before you go ahead and install Ansible is that I want you to take a VM snapshot. This will allow you to come back or revert back to the VM original state when you took the snapshot in case you do make a mistake or do some kind of misconfiguration on your Linux operating system. All right, so go to our Oracle VirtualBox. Right here, your Ansible control node is powered off. You have this menu. If you don't have this menu, simply click on these three dots, click on snapshot, and then click take. Give it a name. I'm going to give Linux install point, which will remind me this is the time when I've completed the Linux installation. Click OK. All right, it's done, and I'll go ahead and click start. All right, while this virtual machine or this Linux operating system is starting it up, let's go to the next step, which is Ansible installation guide can be found on this link. So I want you to write down this link because this will give you a lot of good information of step-by-step instruction on installing Ansible. If you are installing on a different version than CentOS 8, which I am going to be installing it on. So if I go to my Firefox, which I have already opened and I am already on that page, on this page you will notice here's a list of all the instructions of installing Ansible on different operating system. Right here is RHEL, CentOS, or Fedora. These are the instructions which we will follow to install it on CentOS. If you are doing it on Ubuntu, follow this instruction. For Debian, follow this instruction. And there are other Unix or Linux type operating system which you could follow the instruction and install Ansible. All right, going back to our slide and going back to our virtual machine. Our virtual machine is up and let's log in as ourself. Okay, so if you notice, this is a smaller windows of VirtualBox. If you wanted to make this window bigger, you could right click on your desktop, go to display setting, and right here where you see resolution, click on it, change the resolution to whichever resolution according to your requirement. I'm going to leave it as is for now. Okay, this is a welcome message that you're gonna get. Every time you start it up, you could actually quit out of it by clicking here and quit. All right, so going back to display, we'll change whatever you have, apply the setting, and it will make it bigger. All right, click on activities, go to the terminal. So we have the terminal open. The next step is for CentOS, Red Hat, Fedora version 7, you will have to run the command yum dnf. DNF is going to be replacing yum eventually. So for now, you could use either or. So install epel-release and then install Ansible. Now for CentOS 8 or any of the version 8, these are the instructions that we will follow. Go back to our Linux machine. To follow these instructions and install any package, we have to run the command as root. So become root. All right. Now go ahead and run the command yum install epel release. All right. It's asking you to confirm, type Y and confirm again, and the package has been installed. All right. The next thing is yum install Python. Now, with CentOS 8 or newer version of Red Hat or Linux, the Python package should already be installed or installed out of the box. To confirm that, you could run the command rpm-qa and grep for Python. And you'll notice these are all the list of Python packages that's already been installed. Great. Now the next step is to install Ansible. So let's clear the screen and type it in yum or DNF. So in this time we'll run DNF. Install Ansible. This is the Ansible engine or software itself. And then next package that we will install in addition to Ansible is the Ansible documentation. And enter. All right, Ansible and Ansible doc package is completed. To verify it, you can run the command rpm qa and grep for Ansible. All right, it's there, Ansible core and Ansible doc. The next thing is if you are using CentOS 8 and the above steps don't work, then follow these steps. So usually version 8 will come with Python 3. If it's not, then you follow these steps. Yum install Python 3 and then use Python package installer to install Ansible, which is pip3 install Ansible -doc. All right, moving on. If you're using Red Hat 8 and the above steps that we followed did not work, then you have to enable the Ansible engine repository to install Ansible. And for that, you will run the command subscription dash manager repos enable the Ansible repositories and then install Ansible. All right, so now after Ansible has been successfully installed on your Linux machine, let's confirm. So here is our Linux machine. Let's clear the screen and you will run the command Ansible dash dash version. And it will give you the version of the Ansible engine or Ansible software that has been installed. All right, it is there. We confirmed that. Now run Ansible command module using ping. So it would be Ansible localhost -m ping. This command is going to run Ansible module called ping against the localhost. So simply as if we are doing ping localhost and it is pinging and confirming it could ping the localhost just like that, we have a ping module within Ansible. By the way, there are many more modules that we will cover later on, but for now this is what I wanted to confirm to see if Ansible has been installed. All right, let's check the Ansible config files. So let's clear the screen again. The Ansible files, all of them are located in etc Ansible, and you do listing of the files and directories. You'll see there are roles directory, which we will cover later on. Then there's a host file. That's where all the remote clients inventory resides. So we every time we run an Ansible command, it comes to this file to see where are the list of all the hosts or remote clients that it has to execute the commands on. And the last one is ansible.cfg. If you need to make any configuration change on Ansible, you could do it on this configuration files. All right. The last thing, please note, if you have SC Linux enabled on remote nodes, you will also want to install libsclinux-python on them before using any copy file template related function in Ansible. Now, you do not have to go log into each and every one of them. What you could do is you can use the yum module or DNF module in Ansible to install this package on remote hosts that do not have it. All right, so we will disable the SC Linux on our remote client because we are using all that setup in our lab environment. But if you're doing in production, then please make sure you install this libsclinux-python package. All right, so now this completes our entire lab setup and configuration. Now it's time to really get our hands dirty and run our Ansible automation scripts against our local hosts and remote clients. One of the best features for Ansible is to automate or execute tasks on the remote clients. So you will have a control node where you will run the script and execute it against the remote clients. So this is something that we will be covering later on, and for that purpose we will need to create Ansible clients where those commands can be executed. So in this video, what we will do, the first step which we already have done, we identified our home lab, we installed the virtualization software, we created a virtual machine and installed a Linux CentOS operating system. Perfect up until this point. Now the next step is that we will create another virtual machine and we'll call it client 2 or client 1 actually. And then we will install a Linux operating system on it as well. We could install any version of Linux, but we will go with CentOS 7. If you have enough resources on your computer, then you could install another virtual machine which can act as a client, a remote client, and we will install a Linux on it as well. So you will have two clients which you could execute commands on, and those will be considered as remote clients for your Ansible control node. All right, so we already have one Linux machine, which is right here showing as VM1. We will be creating a VM2, which we will call client 1. So we'll go to our Oracle VirtualBox and simply click on new. There's no new, so we'll go here. Wait a second. we have to go to Tools here, and now it will show me the options for New. Okay, click New, and we'll call it Linux Client 1. If you're creating additional client, you'll call it Linux Client 2. All right, so it has the Linux already selected. It has the version already selected. Perfect. Go ahead and click Next. The memory, it's always good to give 2 gig. If you have less memory to give out, then leave it as 1 gig. That's fine. Next, create a virtual machine, sorry, virtual disk type, dynamically allocated, and pick a disk 20 gig. Click Create, and it has created your Linux Client 1. Go to the setting and go to the network and make sure you change the attached to from NAT to bridge adapter. Click OK. Perfect. Now we need to install Linux operating system on it. And as I said, we will be installing CentOS 7 on the client. You could install CentOS 8 or any version of your choice, but for this course, we will be picking CentOS 7 for the client. So we'll go to our Firefox and we'll go to download CentOS. Click on CentOS.org, leave CentOS Linux, which is 7, click on x64, x86-64, pick the first one, and then go to the one that has the highest size or biggest size, which is 9.5, CentOS 7, x86, everything ISO. Click on it, and it will start downloading. Of course, downloading can take time, so in order to save time, I have already downloaded that on my computer. So I'm going to cancel it. Now I have already downloaded. I'm going to minimize it. Now the next thing is I'm going to power it on, which I'm going to click on Start. Okay, so now since it's started up, it's asking me where is your ISO image. Click on this little icon folder, Add, and I have downloaded the ISO image right here in a folder ISO, and the 7 CentOS 7 is right here. And click Open, and then click Choose and Start. Of course, as it's going through the installation, I'm going to be fast forward so we could save some time. Pick the first one, which is Install CentOS 7. All right, so we have the welcome to CentOS 7, leave default, or pick the region according to your requirement. So click Continue. Okay, on this screen, leave the date and time as default according to your or where you're located. Keyboard for me is English, language supports English, installation source local media, software selection, click on that and pick server with GUI. Click Done. Go to the installation destination. You already have 20 gig selected. Click Done. It will do the automatic partitioning. And network host name, click on client Linux client 1 and click Apply and turn on the Ethernet adapter, which is the networking for your Linux machine. And you already did the apply and click Done. That part is done. Now click on Begin Installation. Root password. Give a root password of your choice. The stronger that you put, the better it is. But if you pick the weak one, then you have to click Done twice. Username. For me, it will be my name. It will automatically change it to my username. And the password. Click Done twice. All right, so it's starting the installation process. It has a few packages to go through. I'm going to fast forward, and once the installation is completed, then we will reboot the Linux machine, the client, and that will create our first Linux client. Now, of course, if you want to create a second client, go ahead and go to your Oracle VirtualBox and create Linux client 2. But for this course, I am going to use only one Linux machine as a client.